Good afternoon. I'm Eric Ward, Vice President for Public Programs at the Linda Hall Library. Thank you for joining us today for How Do I Become a Computer Scientist? Presented in partnership with our good friends at the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Computing and Engineering. Designed for students, How Do I Become is a monthly series held on the fourth Friday of each month. The programs feature scientists and engineers from a variety of fields. And I want to plug next month's program as well. On October 23rd will be How Do I Become an Engineer, which will also be presented in partnership with the UMKC School of Computing and Engineering. The program will feature John Bazin, a UMKC alum who's currently an aerospace engineer at Blue Origin. In a prior position, he worked with a team on the NASA Mars 2020 rover. So if you know anybody out there interested in a career in space and aerospace engineering, it's October 23rd at the same time, 2 p.m. Central. For more information and to register for the program or any of our other Linda Hall Library events, visit lindahall.org. And as a reminder, if you have questions for the speakers today, you'll see a Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. Type in your questions there and we'll try to get to as many as we can during the Q&A session. Now to introduce today's speaker is Marjorie Eisenman, Assistant Dean of Student Affairs at the UMKC School of Computing and Engineering. And Marjorie, thank you so much for the wonderful partnership for this program and many other programs that we co-sponsor.
Thanks, Eric. I'm really glad to be here and I'm excited that we get to bring this program together and tell everyone about all the great things that both the Linda Hall Library and the UMKC School of Computing and Engineering do in relationship to computer science. So we're excited to have you all here today and excited to share with you some of our speakers and how they became a computer scientist. Our first speaker today is Sherry Lumpkins. Sherry is the principal consultant at Blue Symphony LLC, the technology and marketing firm she founded in 2002. Before launching Blue Symphony, Sherry held several technical and management positions at companies ranging from small startups to international corporations, including Assurant, where she organized and led the company's first data architect team, and Sprint, where her duties range from programmer analyst to project manager. During her tenure as Director of Associate Managers, Riverpoint was named the fastest growing consulting company in Kansas City. She also earned accolades as a consultant to companies such as Butler Manufacturing, Feral Gas, and the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. Sherry's passion for technology dates back to her college days at UMKC, where she started out as an accounting major. About halfway through the accounting program, she realized she had very little desire to wade through the financial statements for the rest of her life, but could easily see herself tinkering around on the computer constantly for the foreseeable future. With that, she switched majors, ultimately graduating from UMKC with a computer science degree. Sherry's contributions have been recognized by academia, industry, and in the volunteer community. Most recently, UMKC named her a Vanguard Award recipient, and the Central Exchange named her a 2020 Enterprising Innovator STEMI Award winner. While she loves her job, she knows there's more to life than working, so Sherry makes time for traveling with family and friends, doing her part to close the STEM gap, and volunteering through her sorority Delta Sigma Theta, and generally just living her best life. So it's my pleasure and great honor to introduce Sherry Lumpkins.
Thank you, Marjorie. I really appreciate that. And thank you, everyone, Linda Hall Library, UMKC, for inviting me to participate. This is a pleasure to be here. And I'm excited to talk about how to become a computer scientist. I will tell you just, the first thing I would say is that there is no one way to do a thing. So what I'm going to focus on today is the way that I did it. And the first thing I will do is admit that I haven't always planned to be a computer scientist. I didn't, when I was a kid, I didn't spend a lot of time really thinking about what I wanted my career to be very honest. What I did know is that I wanted to have options. I didn't want to feel like I had to do one certain thing, or I was limited to only this kind of stuff rather than those kinds of opportunities. And so I also knew that if at all possible, I wanted to do something that I loved as a career. And so knowing those two things, even though I didn't know exactly what I specifically wanted to do, generally knowing that, I felt that in order to have options, in order to do something I love, I had to know a lot of stuff. That's kind of what I thought. I had to learn a lot of things. And so just with that in mind, when I was a student, I did the work, listened to the teachers, tried to get good grades. I also, from a pretty early age, had decided I'm going to attend college, which was a little bit different from my family because my parents didn't have a degree at the time that I was growing up. I actually attended my mother's college graduation after I earned my degree. So college wasn't necessarily a given before, but for me, again, I felt like I wanted to know a lot of things so that I could have a lot of options. And so college was sort of a given for me. And so that's what I did. And throughout school, whether it be grade school, high school, and college, I just kind of kept my mind pretty open to different things. I thought, maybe I'd like to write. Writing's not so bad. And so I went to a journalist camp one summer. That was an experience. I don't know if that was the time I decided, nope, that's not me. Ultimately, I did decide that's not me. I've been to an engineering program. My parents were thrilled with that because they tried to tell me for years, you need to become an engineer, you need to become an engineer, you need to become an engineer. So I tried that. It wasn't really my thing. I've got tons of friends who are. When I say engineer, I am a software engineer, but a mechanical engineer or an aerospace engineer, like Mr. Ward mentioned earlier. That really wasn't my jam. So I thought by the time I made it to college, when it came time to choose majors, I thought, well, I've always liked math. Maybe I should be an accounting major. That's kind of how I felt about it. I started accounting, it was fine. About halfway through that accounting program, as Marjorie mentioned, I'm like, yeah, this is not going to do it for me. Again, it works for some people, it doesn't do it for me. So at that point, again, I'm kind of halfway through college. So at that point, I'm getting kind of nervous. Well, if you're not going to do this, what are you going to do? What are you doing here? What classes should you be taking? It was kind of a scary moment, to be honest. The great thing is that during college, I always worked internships, all different sorts of internships. And at that particular time, I happened to be working at an internship where I worked on a computer all the time. And that's what I really, really discovered, this really is cool, like you've already heard. So I thought, I wonder if there's anything that, any jobs out there where I can work on computers just all day, do this kind of cool kind of thing all day. I'll keep in mind, this was several years ago, so that computers are all over the place now. They're in your pockets, you're looking at one now. At that time, that wasn't really the case. So it wasn't just obvious. For some of you guys, it's kind of obvious. At the time, for me, it wasn't. So I thought, I wonder if there's something I could do with this. I did. I was at UMKC. I worked with a counselor, found out there is a program or a major that you could specialize in to graduate and go on to get a job in computer science. Done and done. Like Marjorie said, switch majors, and the rest is history. And so I did exactly that. I got my degree in computer science from the School of Computing and Engineering, and was off and running. Now, when I say off and running, I felt like I want to pause here just for a second to talk about how the college experience prepared me. it wasn't just the computer classes. It wasn't even just the internship. It was also being part of student organizations. When I was in school, I was part of several different student organizations. And the way that that helped prepare me is that we used to have meetings. We used to have to plan and execute projects. We had to figure out how to work together. We had to solve problems. I even had to interview to become part of some of the organizations that I belonged to. So all of those things are just all kind of working together, and a lot of those skills that I learned in college, I still use today with things like that. And so, as I had mentioned before, I've kind of always been working on internships, always kind of exploring what was going on. So the last internship that I had during my senior year, by that time I had become a major, a computer science major. And so I was specifically looking for computer science opportunities, and I worked at a place called Payless Cashways. That internship, after I graduated, became my first job. So I didn't even have to hit the pavement because I had done well during my internship, and they go, okay, you got a degree now, here, we'll give you a permanent position. And so my first job out of college was my last internship in college. I was pretty excited about that. So if we kind of just look back at what I've talked about so far during my education or academic years, I kind of find that time and my career going forward has kind of revolved around 4 core principles. That is being willing to learn, being interested in exploring, finding enjoyment, and then the 4th thing would be paying it forward. So if I'm going to kind of jump into each one of those components a little bit as I talk about my career. So when we talk about learning, the technology field specifically, our fields evolve. Any kind of major you're interested in, any kind of industry you're interested in, it's going to evolve over time. Technology evolves at a record pace. You've got devices and features and things you can do right now you couldn't do even 5 years ago. There are technologies that were just must-haves 5 or 10 years ago that you can't find anywhere now because no one wants them or needs them. Technology evolves very, very, very quickly. And so someone interested in this field probably is interested in learning all the time. Not just I've graduated and I'm done learning, just be prepared to learn all the time and often. When at one point in my career, I was a consultant. So there's a consulting firm, and they would loan out expertise to other companies that didn't have certain kinds of skills, employees with certain kinds of skills. And so consultants would come in and help with specific projects, get the job done, and then they'd be done with that company, and then they'd go to another company that needed some help. So when I was a consultant at that consulting company, I used to go in about once a year or so, and I'd say, so what are people looking for now? I would talk to the account managers, the people that would find the companies that needed our help. And I'd say, what are companies looking for now? And sometimes they say, everybody needs Java now. So at that time, I went out and learned Java. I got certified, and now I was marketable for that. I'd go back another time, what are companies interested in now? Everybody's on Oracle, and they need Oracle developers. So I learned Oracle, the programming languages associated with that. I got certified with that. And so it just kind of happened like that. So I've gotten several certifications just by trying to follow the industry and understand who needs what and where my interests were. So that's where I just kind of became very accustomed to, you are going to have to learn all the time. And I do enjoy that. And so it works well for me. When I started my own company, I was originally an independent consultant. And so it was just me. But as we grew, I took on employees, and the scope, the things that the services we offer grew and expanded. And so I had to learn how, okay, I've been a consultant all these years. How do I become a manager? How do I make this thing work? And so again, I'm still learning now how my business is expanding. How do I make that expand correctly? So just always be interested and ready to learn. The other pillar that I talked about was exploring. The STEM field is huge. I've been different things over different years. I've been a software engineer. I've designed databases. I've done the business analyst work. Just different skills. It would take all day to get even close to naming all of the different things that you can do in technology as a computer scientist. So I would just suggest to be open to be exploring all of those types of things. And the different things require different skills. So generally speaking, helpful things would be problem solving, logic, creativity, the ability to organize. Again, I think the field is so broad that pretty much you could find something that you're interested in. You want to enjoy what you're doing, if at all possible. You're probably going to be doing it for a long time. And so as you're exploring, figure out what you do enjoy. That's what I did. There was a time where being a manager was the last thing I wanted to do. And so I looked for a job being a programmer. And now, at this point, my preferences have changed, and I'm totally fine being a manager. And so I just kind of be willing and open to say, oh, rather than saying, I don't do that, or I don't know how to do that, or I'm not interested in it, even though I haven't looked into it. I'd say do the exact opposite. And finally, pay it forward. What I've said, there's always somebody who's kind of been in your shoes and been there, done that, and can help you to do well and to become a computer scientist. And so connect with those people. At the same time, become one of those people. Where you are now, you have certain things that you know, you have certain abilities that you have. Be willing to share that with people who haven't quite been where you are. That's what I've done, and it's extremely gratifying, and it just kind of helps make everybody and everything around you better. And so I would encourage you to do that. So learn, explore, enjoy, and pay it forward. That's how you become a computer scientist.
Sherry, thank you so much. I think you bring up so many good points, particularly the fact that this is an ever-changing field. And I once had a boss who said we are helping students find jobs that don't even exist yet. So yeah. I think that you bring up some really good points about that, because like you said, some of the things that you probably learned in your computer science experience when you were taking classes, people don't use that anymore, and now using all sorts of new types of technology that we are constantly changing all the time. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And Sherry's going to be back on at the end with our other speakers to answer any questions that our guests have today. So thank you again. Our next speaker is Davion Ross, and we're excited to have Davion here. He is an innovative technology leader and widely recognized entrepreneur. He has almost 20 years of experience in the technology sector. He's the co-founder and president of DD Sports Inc., of which Shot Tracker is the first product. Shot Tracker is a sensor-based technology which provides comprehensive real-time stats and analytics to players, coaches, and fans in practice and live games. Shot Tracker consists of a player sensor, a sensor integrated into the ball, and court sensors placed in the arena. And some of Shot Tracker's investors include Magic Johnson, David Stern, and other notable VCs. As CEO of Digital Sports Ventures, Davion negotiated the rights to Division I college sports video across 7 major conferences and set the strategy for the company's portfolio of content and interactive technologies. His vision of uniting college sports and digital media into affordable turnkey solutions doors for publishers, advertisers, and agencies seeking to engage sports fans in a targeted manner. Prior to launching Digital Sports Ventures, Davion served as lead technical and management consultant for eVergence Partners, managing projects across the United States, Europe, and Canada for clients including Research in Motion, BlackBerry, T-Online, Business Objects, Saskel, Mattel, Siemens Medical Systems, Nortel Networks, and many others. Prior to eVergence, Davion began his technology career as a software engineer at Sprint, playing critical roles in the development of the company's customer relation management and knowledge management applications. A native of Trinidad and Tobago, West Indies, Davion left Trinidad in 1996 on a full basketball scholarship, where he was a four-year starter, captain, and letterman for Benedictine College's basketball team while leading the nation in field goal percentage his senior year. Davion also earned a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and later his MBA from Mid-America Nazarene University. Davion is also an active angel investor with investments in several startup companies, including iVerify, Open Doors, MetaActive, Flow Forward, and others. I am very, very excited to introduce to you Davion Ross to tell you a little bit about his path in the field of computer science.
Awesome. So thank you for having me, making sure everybody can hear me okay. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my journey, but before I do, I think that one of the things that I want you to take away from this discussion is that, and I tell people this all the time, in our current day and age and in our society, technology plays a very, very significant role. So as you try to pursue becoming a computer scientist, I want to let you know that there's many jobs that are associated with the field of computer science. And no matter what you're doing today, no matter what job there is, having some understanding of technology is a really critical piece. Even if you want to have a business where you're selling cookies, I mean, the long and short of it is that you have to have a website, you have to be able to take transactions online. If you want that business to be what it can be, you're going to have to understand and learn and utilize technology. So that's one of the really critical things. Technology has become the de facto standard. And the more you understand, the more you have a better understanding, is the more you'll be able to capitalize on it and use it in any facet of your future. For me, I grew up, playing sports, and I grew up in it where I didn't necessarily have access to a computer, but through high school, while playing basketball, I had a very strong understanding of math, and math was what led me into computer science. When I graduated high school back in 1995, I played basketball for my country for a year, and was starting to get involved in computers, more from a hardware perspective, more from generic programming. So I wasn't one of those kids that started programming at the age of 5 or 8 or anything like that. I started much later on. But still, when I went to college on my basketball scholarship, my initial thought process was that I was going to be a math major, full math major. I think one of the things that really changed that dynamic was as I was going through and talking to my advisor about math and being a math major, I wanted to understand what are the opportunities for math. And the communication to me is, hey, you can go into actuary science, you can go into research, you could go into teaching. And none of those things felt like they were a fit for me. One of the things that I would advise you to do that I did not do was, and I think Sherry talked a lot about this in regards to, getting access and getting visibility to as many things as possible. So on the road to being a computer science, there are so many solutions in the market right now. And I encourage your parents to give you visibility and the opportunity to interact with those solutions, whether that's internships. Try everything, because you do not know what you're going to like. And from my perspective, if that's something that I would do differently, and the learning that I had as part of my process, I think if I would have had the opportunity to have internships where, I can do different jobs, see how computers impact my life, see different type of experiences within computers, it would have allowed me to get to being a computer scientist and much faster, which those experiences shaped me. So I don't regret them, but my advice to you is if you can actually, see as many things as possible. Additionally, the other thing that I think is really important to be on the road to being a computer scientist is to be curious. um, your parents may not like this, but curiosity is important. And if you have to break apart some electronics at home and put them back, if that's what it takes for you to learn, then I assure you that it's a helpful experience with your curiosity, wanting to understand how things work, wanting to understand how things function, wanting to reverse engineer things. Curiosity is a very, very, very critical piece of computer science, because you have to want to know how things work, and you have to have the desire to be able to hopefully break them apart and build them back better. That's something that, while I was in college, I started to build that curiosity to start to understand, okay, how does this work? What does it do? What does this do? Seeing all these new technologies, wanting to understand the underlying infrastructure in regards to how they work. So I got to a situation where I was working with my advisors and understood, what my options were from a math perspective, and decided that, seeing that I was planning to take all the math classes and looking at where the world is going. And again, this is another critical topic that both Marjorie and Sherry talked about. In the future, especially if you want to be in computer science, it's a very novel field, but there are multiple instantiations of jobs and opportunities that leverage computer science. So when you think about the future, data science is one of the biggest fields of the future. Data is everything. And if you think about it, computer scientists are the ones who, whether they build the infrastructure that the data is built on, or maybe they're doing hardware design, which is not necessarily computer science, but it's within that computer field, and they're doing IoT, being able to get data off of devices, or they're doing analytics. A lot of the future jobs that are set up for analytics, et cetera, are based on math and computer science principles. So what I looked at was in understanding the future and looking at, there weren't necessarily architecture jobs that were going to be coming up when I was graduating, but there was this shortage of computer scientists, which led me to go down the path of, I already had the math background, to start to really focus on computer science. And as I look back, that was a great experience, because what it allowed me to do is not only have the math background and the computer science background, but it also allowed me to understand what was going on in the technology world. I went ahead and got a master's in business administration, and being able to pair my technical background with the business administration allowed me to be a technology entrepreneur. The one thing I will say about computer science is that I am very fortunate because it's given me the opportunity to see the world. When I got out of college, I had a great college career, and I had some opportunities to go play overseas. And I decided not to go play overseas because I wanted to, because Sprint, my employer, offered to pay for my green card. Um, but one of the things that I can say is that computer science and my engineering background allowed me to travel the world and see these really incredible experiences, whether it was, in Darmstadt, Germany, or Frankfurt, or whether it was in Vancouver, Canada, or Waterloo, Kitchener, or just domestically across the U.S. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be, to have studied computer science and to see some of these opportunities. Now, I'm not saying that other opportunities would not allow you the access to travel, etc. But what I can say is that computer science has given me a really incredible foundation. Now I run a company by the name of Shot Tracker, DD Sports, and we use computer science heavily. And there are certain facets of the business that require everything that we've done. We've filed approximately 26 patents, 16 of which have been already issued. And of these patents, it's all problem solving. So the computer science and the engineering is the foundation of all the things that we're doing. Now, we're very fortunate because we're able to put together both technology and business and sports, which are things that I'm extremely passionate about. And I talk a little bit about passion because I want to make sure that each one of you figure out what your passion is. And if your passion is your passion will drive the curiosity that I talked about, and being able to have the foundation, understanding that the value that computer science builds will propel you. Because if you have that passion with the technical expertise, it would allow you and put you in a place to be extremely successful with that computer science baseline. With that said, I'll close out to say that curiosity is extremely important. Making sure that you have a great base and look at everyday instances or everyday opportunities to learn more about what you want to do from a technical perspective. There are so many resources that you can learn. When I was growing up, it was really hard. I didn't have computers weren't as accessible. The internet wasn't as accessible for some folks. But today you have so many resources that are available to you. So many resources, whether it's game development, find the things that you're passionate about, layer the technical computer science component on top of it, and keep iterating, keep learning, keep that pursuit and that curiosity, because that will help propel you to figure out in what component of what field of computer science and what field of engineering you want to have, you want to build upon. And as long as you have the passion, anything is possible.
Thank you so much. I think you bring up so many points, and one of the big ones is that there's so many options within computer science. And you're absolutely, data science is what we talk about on a daily basis at UMKC in the School of Computing and Engineering. There's lots of opportunities for that, and the jobs are incredible. And then the other part is that almost every company needs somebody with the technical expertise. So there's always jobs, whether it's, at a company that's the main thing they're doing, or being the only tech person at a company. But it's exciting to see what you've taken, like you said, taking your passion and making it into a career and a business.
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you so much. So our next speaker is Joshua Coney, and Joshua is a senior at UMKC. He's studying computer science. He's originally from Cameroon and lived in Kansas City as an exchange student in high school, and fell in love with Kansas City and returned to become a student at UMKC. In addition to his involvement at UMKC as an international ambassador, Joshua is also an AR/VR ambassador in the School of Computing and Engineering. And he gives tours and shows our high-tech AR/VR lab to visitors and fellow students. So we're excited to have him here today to tell us a little bit more and show us more about the augmented and virtual reality lab at UMKC. A few days ago, Joshua and I filmed him in using the lab so that you can see it, because we want to be able to show it, but we wanted to have something recorded, because sometimes technology isn't reliable at the moment. So we recorded it. So please forgive our novice recording of it. And Joshua's going to tell you a little bit before we start the video. And one day soon, we hope that we can bring you to campus and let you see our AR/VR lab, which we are excited to have visitors back to it again, hopefully soon, and get you a chance to play with some of the cool equipment. So Joshua, you want to tell them all about AR/VR, and we'll show them that video?
Definitely. I don't know that I can tell I can tell them everything about AR/VR, but hello everybody. I am so grateful to be here, and my name is Joshua Coney, and as Ms. Eisenman pointed out, I am an international student, and I am studying computer science at UMK. Very involved with the augmented reality and virtual reality lab. And one of the things that really gets me excited about going to campus when we were able to was just being in the AR VR lab. So we have a number of equipments there which are not really available to everybody. And I just feel grateful that I get to really, use all of these tools. And in the videos that you're going to see, we have the interactive mirror, which you're going to be seeing me being able to interact with it, have sensors, and then play soccer. And basically the idea is for you to experience what AR VR is and kind of like what the future of that market is. They are basically 3 videos, I believe, that we're going to show. One is of the headsets, the HTC Vive headset, and I have the controller on, and then you have the big screen. And I will be able to talk more about it once the video is out.
So over here we have the big screen, and to use the big screen you need 2 things. The way we've set it up, you need the glasses, the 3D glasses that basically immerses you into this virtual reality, and then I have a controller to be able to move around. I'm gonna put on this, and then you can able to see what I'm seeing. Maybe not as good as I see it, but let's do this. So this is a simulation basically of a city plan, and we are kind of in the city itself. So right now what I'm doing is I'm basically moving around. Using the controllers, I can go up and kind of like turn around and see all the different things that are there. I can move away from it. It kind of feels like I am moving even with staying in the same position. And the great thing about this, for example, is with this simulation, if you were proposing a plan for a city project, you could be able to give people an idea of what it's going to look like if they got in an elevator to look at it, or if they're standing from a building, and make it feel like it's already realized, a project that has been realized. So this is pretty cool. And you can turn around, as you can see, I can see some trees and you can still see some buildings. So this is kind of an exterior view of this, which is cool. So over here we have the interactive mirror. It's called an interactive mirror because it's basically like a giant iPhone. And besides the fact that you can touch on the screen, or you can touch the screen and interact with it, there's a camera and there are sensors that actually detect if you are within the eyesight of this. And so right now, simulation of a medical room, and you can see there's an avatar of me or whoever stands in front of the interactive mirror. And there are a number of options over here for things to do. So it's basically, again, it has sensors, so it can see my hands, and then there are 2 hands that are basically supposed to be replicas of mine on the screen. And I can basically move around the screen and wave, I can point, I can clap, I can do all of these. And then I can also combine them. It lets you, again, combine all of them. And then the other thing is you can change from one screen to the other. This is really cool for a biology class, for example. You can be able to dissect and see all of this. So it's interacting with me, and I can be able to see it. Right now, what it does is, if I touch my heart, it's going to bring up a heart, and then I can actually go ahead and rotate the heart and see how the heart is dissected. And I can place it back, and I'm going to go ahead and take out my brain, and you can see my brain, which is pretty cool, I think. So this is basically, this is like mixed reality. Not really mixed reality, but this is augmented reality, where you're able to see a simulation and work in the simulation, and also be able to see yourself. So it's kind of a blend of both augmented reality and virtual reality. That's why I called it virtual. I called it augmented reality, or mixed reality. And that's that. So here we have the station for the HTC Vive. This is the HTC Vive headset, and this is the controllers that go with it. generally the HTC Vive headset comes with this two equipments plus the cords that connects to the computer, and then you have sensors to basically track your movement around. So I'm gonna go ahead and then put this on, and the simulation we have on is the Spider-Man Far From Home. This is one of my favorite simulations, so I'm gonna go ahead and try this. Let's see if I can get my glasses off. Okay. There we go. All right, now feels like I'm Spider-Man. I can see everything in Spider-Man's room. But Spider-Man. Okay, so right now I am in Spider-Man's wall and I can see everything in Spider-Man's room. I'm gonna start the simulation. Looking around, you can see the boxes on the floor, Spider-Man's costume, his desk, and a fan. And I'm gonna go ahead and start the simulation. You should be able to see what I'm seeing. This is completely immersive. And the beauty of this is it makes you feel like you are actually in the simulation. It actually takes you there, and then you can have that full experience. All right, so it's loading, and then I should find myself somewhere on top of the roof any minute from now. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I am on top of the roof. I'm guessing it's somewhere in New York City. And right now, I can see my hands, or Spider-Man's hands. You have the thingy for the spider webs. And then I'm gonna go ahead and try to use this. This is basically the way I move. It has a trigger under for you to send the spider webs, and you can pull with the dongle over there. And I am now flying, or jumping. This is actually real and it's kind of scary. But that's the thing, it makes it feel real. And now I am jumping from building to building using my spider webs. This feels almost real to the point that you feel it in real life. So I feel like I need to sit down because this is kind of games is that you're completely in the game itself. If you've ever dreamt about doing anything that you can't do, you can do it in VR, which is really cool. Alright, so I'm in the middle of the road. You can see me somewhere in this made up wall, and that's really cool. There we go. And that really felt real. I just hit into a building.
All right.
So Joshua, you just ran into a wall there.
I did. I'm really sorry about the sound quality. Again, for many reasons, we couldn't be on campus for everyone to get to try it. And I promise that it's like, it is one of the best experience when you get to actually, either fully immerse or partially immerse yourself in virtual reality or augmented reality. I know I probably spent way too much time in that room in the lab. And I think personally for me, one of the things about, having that exposure to virtual reality and augmented reality is that I am a visual person and I love to be able to learn or practice what I can see. It feels more tangible, it feels more real. And so augmented reality and virtual reality gives me that ability to be able to do things like that. So I know I think back to when I used to take biology when I was growing up, and the teacher would be explaining about how the blood flows from one part of the body to the other and around the heart. And I guess I would consider myself as an artist, and then I'll try to visualize it. But it felt like it would be more tangible if I could actually see it or practice it. And I think virtual reality and sometimes augmented reality gives you the ability to do that, which is why I am so excited to have that exposure. The other thing that it showed, and just referring to the benefits of augmented reality, is it's mostly, for today, it's mostly common in smartphones, and the gaming world. I was just, before we got on live, I was just talking about Pokemon Go and Animal Crossing, and how those games have kind of like really immersed us in the world of either VR or AR. I mean, we're talking about VR, and we are having a virtual meeting, virtually, Zoom, and you talk about things like having a virtual background. The other reason why I'm glad to be sort of having this exposure to VR technology is that in the long term, 3 years, 5 years from now, a lot of companies are going to be investing in some form of VR or AR technology. And I would encourage anyone to sort of just get acquainted with those technologies, as a lot of people are already. But I was definitely glad to be able to show that video, and it's not the best, but as always, it's better in person than online. But I'm glad.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're really excited at UMKC because we are just about to open our brand new building, which will have a brand new AR/VR lab and showroom, which is about 4 times as big as our current lab. So we're excited to add more equipment and more things for promising computer scientists in the community to play with and figure out how they can use AR/VR in their lives. So thank you, Joshua, for letting us videotape you running into a wall of Spider-Man, but also for showing some of the equipment and how that works. We now have a little bit of time for Q&A with all of our panelists, and so everybody will be joining us back, and Eric will be leading that.
Yes, and thank you, Joshua, Davion, and Sherry. That was wonderful stuff. I'm still stuck on the heart and the brain. That was cool stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing the lab in person someday as well. I've heard Marjorie talk about it quite a bit, and I just, with COVID hit, I've never had a chance to walk over there and see it. And as a reminder for everyone watching, if you have a question, you'll see a Q&A chat box at the bottom of the screen. Type your question in there, and I will read them to our panelists. And if you're watching on Facebook, just type your question in the comments section, and I'll see them there. Let me start with one question about soft skills. You're all great speakers that we've heard here, but there's also writing and being collaborative at work. Do you have any tips on how someone can develop those skills? Sherry, I'll begin with you.
Sure, Eric, thanks. So you're talking about developing soft skills, huh? That's wow, you start with a hard one, honestly. It's easy to say 1 + 1 is 2, that's the cool math stuff. So I mean, and I say that kind of tongue in cheek, kind of jokingly, because I would go back to the fact that when we're all kind of socializing and interacting, even in grade school on the playground, you're really, frankly, developing soft skills there, to be honest. And so the best way to do that, I would harken back to what I mentioned before, is joining student organizations. That helps you learn how to interact with other people. It helps you learn how different personalities act and respond to different things. You learn more about yourself and what you react to and how you react. And you get experience in learning how to handle different situations. And so I think that's probably one of the most obvious ways is to get involved in student organizations.
That's great advice. Davion, do you have anything to add?
I mean, I echo Sherry's thoughts. I think, extracurricular activities play such a substantial role. Um, I was in band, I was in drama, I was in choir in church, I did debate. So I mean, I think all of these things, when you talk about soft skills, knowing how to negotiate, knowing how to have conversations with people, knowing how to project your voice. I mean, I think all these are things that, I mean, when you're doing it, you don't necessarily think that it helps with your soft skills and with your technology. But I think I mean, Sherry's on point. Just those extracurricular activities, don't just sit there and code, but have conversations with people, join these different groups because they all help to, create you be, help you be that wholesome person that you need to be, and develop some of those skills. I mean, the other thing that I think is great is, I did math and computer science major, but I also did a business minor. And when you start doing business minor, you start interacting with other people, right? So you stop interacting with a bunch of engineers, and you may start interacting with just maybe the finance folks because they have a different methodology how they think. You start interacting with the marketing folks, and you start getting a different perspective, be put in different situations where you're not like just sitting in front of your computer coding, but now you got to come up with a marketing project where everybody has to present. So I think that type of diversity in your learning is just really critical.
Joshua, not to put you on the spot, but do you find that to be true as well? Are you involved in other activities?
Yeah, interestingly, that's one of the first things I decided to do my first semester of college. This is my senior year, and throughout college, one of the things that I have, invested myself in doing is trying to meet a new person all the time. So that was actually my first goal in college, in my first semester, and I would do that every single day. And at the time, it was mostly to be able to create a circle and kind of like be able to find resources when I needed them or where I know where I could find them. And I realized that as time went on, it helped with, just kind of knowing how to collaborate with people because we might be talking about just language and expression, but language and expression to me is more than that. It's also knowing how to read the room. It's also knowing how to understand nonverbal communication. And definitely, I think one of the my one of the I think I would say I'm really proud of, or one of the organizations that I'm really proud to be part of, among the many others that I signed up to. It got a little crazy. Is Enactus, which is one of the organizations we have on campus. We have a number of organizations. One of the best things about UMKC is that we have more than 100 organizations, and you have students who come up with new organizations. And so it facilitates that ability for you to join an organization and kind of like Mr. Davian was talking about, like being able to meet students from other backgrounds. As a computer scientist, it is true that you can be close, you can be just in this bubble of programmers and coders and people who just speak your language and speak other computing and programming languages too. But once you expose yourself to other students through organizations, through clubs, volleyball, debate, choir, it definitely helps with that. And I can think one of the, going above communication is you create long-lasting relationships. So.
That's great advice. We have a question about virtual internships, their availability, and how do students apply? And maybe Marjorie, I could include you in this too, if someone can speak on just whether there are virtual internships and how does a student go about applying for one?
Well, I think that this year there was a lot of virtual internships unintentionally. And so I do anticipate that some companies will provide those, a lot of things we never thought we could do until we were forced to do them. And so I think that there will be a lot more opportunities for those types of experiences for students. But the number one thing that we find for students is if there's a company you're interested in, talk to someone there. Between the resources you have on LinkedIn and other, social media sites, if you are interested in an organization and learning more about what they do, the best way to find that is to do what we call an informational interview. So connect with somebody at that organization who's doing something that you're interested in and talk to them and interview them about their career. Most people like to talk about themselves and how they've gotten to where they are. And so you can learn a lot as well as network for finding opportunities. And so I don't know if Sherry or Davion has some other advice as a leader in an organization too.
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, I think you're right? Most of these internships are virtual, or, I would probably call them remote, internships. And I think that what we've seen is, given the current climate, that most people are open to remote internships. The one thing that I will say, and I hope people take this to heart, is that remote is hard, right? Especially for someone who doesn't necessarily have, if someone who's trying to learn. Remote is hard, but it's inevitable. So my only counsel is that if you're going to be remote, communication in business is critical, right? Remote communication is exponentially critical. So if you're going to do remote and you're going to be able to do a job, and developers are a little bit easier, right? Here's a few tasks, go, come back, get it done, get help. But I would say leverage every single channel, have open lines and over communicate, because just being remote, especially as an intern, if you're outside of development, it's pretty challenging. It's not impossible, it's just challenging, and it's going to require a lot of communication and not a lot of initiative that you're going to have to take, and reaching out to everybody, trying to set in the right objectives, because again, just remote work is hard, and there are adults who struggle with remote work. That's just the reality of it. Some people just don't do well, but I encourage you to make sure you have amplified communication, take in substantial initiative, and just setting the right objectives.
Right, we're getting close to the top of the hour, so let's make this the final question, and it's kind of one of those big questions, and maybe we could narrow it down to one little thing. Liberty would like to know, what would you say was your biggest challenge, or has been your biggest challenge, either in college or in your career, and how did you overcome it? Joshua, we'll start with you there in college.
Well, I'm still in college, so yeah. I think overall, but I didn't start with how I, decided to become a computer scientist or get into the field of computer science. And it wasn't something that I had always planned on, doing. I enjoyed drawing, so I was going to go the route of architecture. And at some point, I grew up with my aunt, and so one of the things that happens was I would always find something to take apart, like Mr. David was saying, like taking apart something, and kind of like it created a problem solving. So if someone came to the house and they had a phone, a Nokia or Motorola, I would have that edge to kind of know every single function of it. And so I discovered programming. Someone introduced me to programming, and then I started with Python, and I was like, well, this is really straightforward. I understand this, and then I'm able to see that I can put in work, and then I can apply it, and then it results to something. And that's how I applied to UMKC, and they were nice enough to grant me a scholarship. And so I, besides being grateful with the fact that I had the scholarship, one of the things I decided I'll do is meet a lot of people and just try to get to know people here. And so I have my studies, but I also have this goal of, just trying to meet as more people as I can and get to know people. And so while doing that in college, I have ended up taking up on a lot of extracurricular activities, taking a lot of jobs on campus. I'm an international student, and so we're limited to the, how we can get jobs. You can get a job on campus, and when you have to get a job off campus, it becomes more complicated. So I got 3 jobs on campus, and so I had to figure that out and figure out my ambassador role with the international office and figure out studies. And so that became a big challenge because sometimes I would have to know how to plan out my day. I'd have to know how to fit in my, you know, my schedule to study for school and not just wait for the last minute, which some of it has happened, to study for an exam or study for a quiz and a test. And so uh, overall, the biggest challenge has just been navigating that, because a lot of people describe me as not being able to say no. If you tell me, could you do this? I'll be like, yes. I am just super excited to always help. And the consequence with that is I have to sacrifice something. So that's been my biggest challenge so far in college, and it is still a big challenge.
Sherry, any big challenges for you?
I'll try to be quick, but honestly, it's I've got two that one I've overcome a bit more, and so I'll talk about that one first. I've always felt pretty good about knowing what I know. You know, if I knew that that I could design databases really well, I knew that. The shock would be when I would go into a computer or a shop, someone's company as a consultant, and they didn't believe that I was a good data modeler. That was a shock to me. It's like, why wouldn't you? And so the challenge would often be just to overcome that assumption for whatever reason that I didn't know my job. And I mean, invariably, I would overcome it, but that is always a challenge. And you kind of get, there comes a time where you kind of get kind of bored with this and go, oh my gosh, come on, just get it. Believe me, I can do this. But again, that is a challenge that I have had to overcome periodically, not constantly, but more than once. The other big challenge that I frankly still struggle with is, so I do know what I know, but the things that I don't know, I'm a very low risk taker at heart. And so stepping out to start my own business was terrifying for me. That was a huge, just the fear, my internal fear was terrifying. And so every time I essentially enter a new phase that I've not experienced before, it's a little frightening, but that's the challenge. And I feel that it's okay for me to be a little frightened as long as I don't let it hinder me to the point where I'm stifled. And so those are really the two biggest challenges. One's very internal and one is just kind of dealing with some of the external.
All right, Davion.
Yeah, I'll be brief. You know, in college, you know, my biggest challenge turned into an asset, right? One of my biggest challenges, I should say, because there were a few of them, was just to balance an act between, you know, playing collegiate sports, basketball specifically, and having to balance, you know, 18 hours per semester. A lot of times, you know, I would come back from games and, you know, we'd get back 11, 12 at night and I'd be heading to the computer lab to finish my project for an 8 o'clock class. So that was like a really big balancing act, but I'm grateful that I pushed through it, because now when, you know, I'm in the working world, I went through the process of working and also doing my master's, and it just gave me a knack and a strength to be able to balance, you know, multiple large scale projects, you know, across the board, and not necessarily panic under the pressure, but be cool, calm, and collected, understanding how to prioritize and focus. So as I said, it was a big challenge in college, especially seeing you come out from a big win with the game and the team wants to go celebrate and I got to go do C++. Worse, you know. So that was a challenge, and of course I was like the only computer science major on the basketball team. So that was a big challenge for me, but as I said, it turned into an asset, and I'm very grateful that I thank God that I stuck with it.
I was going to say you were probably the only one on your team in the computer lab after the program. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with the other computer science majors, you know, who may or may not have been there because they got their work done, but.
well, thank you, Davion. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Joshua, for just wonderful presentations and comments during the Q&A session. Thank you, Marjorie.
Thank you, Eric. We're glad to partner with you all.
Yeah, thank you. team at the UMKC School of Computing and Engineering. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. Again, join us at lindahall.org for more information about upcoming events, including our How Do I Become an Engineer program, October 23rd, co-sponsored with UMKC next month. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.